Russell Brand, I want to have a word with you.
I hope this message gets to you. My name is Larken Rose. I don't think you have any reason to know who I am, nor does it matter who I am. But I did want to send this message to you in particular, not to praise you or condemn you. I mean, there's tons of stuff you've done that I think has been awesome. And I'm also not sending this to really disagree with you about anything. I want to add one thing that you may not have thought of. Now, I'm well aware that whenever you criticize the current left-leaning establishment, there are probably plenty of people who decide that you're a right-wing extremist Nazi, whatever, which is ridiculous. And at the same time, I'm sure there's plenty of conservatives who assume, especially given that you sort of came from the Hollywood left, that you're just another lefty, liberal, American-hating, yada, yada, yada. Neither of them bother to, listen to what you have to say. So I'm not either of those camps and doing either of those criticisms. In fact, it's not really a criticism. It's one ingredient I want you to consider that it sounds like you haven't, because for all the times you cover factual stuff and you have all these awesome guests and you cover all this stuff, especially stuff that the, the powers that be don't really want us talking about, the way you generally describe sort of the problem and the solution with society just so tempted me to make this video, because you speak as if, you obviously recognize that we have a corrupt monstrosity that serves itself at the expense of everybody else's freedom and prosperity and safety and health and all that stuff, which is absolutely true. When you describe what we should have instead, where the people have a system that actually serves us and helps us and gets us what we want and things like that, instead of serving a parasitic elite, yeah, kind of. I totally agree that the people should have that, but I think there's a piece of the equation that you're missing, that almost everybody is missing, because nobody hears it talked about in the mainstream. The options we hear in the mainstream, and you're well aware of this phenomenon, the options we hear in the mainstream are all things that the establishment is kind of okay with us thinking. You can be extreme left or extreme right and basically be the same thing and worshiping the ruling class and doing whatever they tell you. That level of discourse and disagreement is okay with them, but if you go way outside of those paradigms and assumptions, then they get really uncomfortable. Well, I want to suggest something way outside of the paradigms and assumptions. You talk in terms of you want something more democratic that serves the people, some way we can get together, so on and so forth. And I don't want to add a secret ingredient that solves everything, or even solves most things. I want to subtract a particular ingredient, because the problem is not that we need another idea or another philosophy, or we need another candidate or political party or legislative act or yada, yada, yada. It's the exact opposite. We need humanity to let go of one particular lie. And I'm going to try to make this short. If you want the longer version, I've made a million videos. I've written books about it, like The Most Dangerous Superstition. That's the long version. This will be the short version. The one thing that allows for all of the problems that you so nicely and eloquently expose and talk about is the belief in authority, the belief in political power, in government, in authority, which means the right to rule. That is the enemy of humanity. That is the cause of the vast majority of the problems we're seeing, is that belief. Now, because most people don't actually look at the belief, it's easy to get confused of, well, what are you talking about? We need some way to organize and cooperate and figure things out. Yes, we do. We need some way to make things work and come to a consensus. Yes, we do. And neither of those have anything to do with authority. The concept of authority has nothing to do with people getting together to do what people already had the right to do. And it has everything to do with the notion that certain rituals or elections or constitutions or whatever give some people special rights. The right to rule, which in a nutshell is what authority means. It is the foundation of the belief in civil government that certain rituals bestow upon a ruling class, a parliament, a congress, a king, I don't care what you call it, bestows upon a select few the right to forcibly control and dominate everybody else. That is the problem. Now, some people, and I may have even heard you say these exact words, say, we need to get corruption out of politics. There is no such thing. Politics is corruption. I don't just mean it's inevitable. I mean, the concept of political power is, by its very nature, immoral corruption. Now, the way it works is the people who get what they want by way of the violence of government bossing people around and taxing people, they call it, oh, they're representing us. And the people on the losing end of that force are like, that's corruption. Except it's always corruption. If you're getting government to use force in a way that you have no right to use force, and I have no right to use force, you are asking for corruption. You're asking for power to benefit you at the expense of somebody else. And that is what every voter in every election is always doing. Back when I was a voter, that's what I was doing. Trying to get the power of government to serve the things I care about at the expense of other people's freedom and prosperity and everything else. And so, in one sense, it's a fundamentally different way to look at humanity, to realize we're all just grown-ups. It's just us. No rituals give anyone any special right to rule. We're just people. Now, when it comes to consensus, if we all get around, whether all of us means 10 of us or 10 billion, if we all get around and say, hey, should we do this way? Yeah, let's do it that way. Cool. But if 10 of us get together and say, should we do this way? And 9 say, yeah, I like that. One says, I don't really like that. For the 9 to say, well, tough crap, because you're going along with it, and we're going to force you to pay for it, and we're going to force you to obey whatever things the majority agreed to. That is democracy, and it is profoundly evil. It is just as destructive as every other flavor of authoritarianism. It's kind of worse because it pretends to be the will of the people. You don't have the right to rob your neighbor to fund things that you care about. I don't have the right to rob my neighbor, or you, to fund things I care about. We have the right in any subset of humanity to decide how to do things together and how to deal with things on an individual basis, on a huge collective basis, voluntarily collective, not let's collectively force the minority to go along with whatever our plan is. And in one sense, that's kind of obvious to the point that you've almost said all of this yourself, but there's still that terminology that to me indicates that you think there can possibly be a government that serves the people. There can't. I don't just mean there's not going to be. I mean, it's conceptually impossible, because the moment you have a ruling class that claims the right to do things that you and I have no right to do, all you did was legitimize evil. And I don't say that to be dramatic, and I'm not, that's literally, logically, and philosophically obvious if you think about it for a second. Let me break it down like this. If there's something I'm allowed to do, and you're allowed to do, I mean, we have the right to do, it's moral. Plant a garden, or help a little old lady across the street, or trade stuff, or build stuff, or defend somebody who's being attacked by somebody else. Anything that we're allowed to do, we don't need a badge. We don't need legislation. We don't need a special office or title to have the right to do those things. They're just inherent to humanity. There's right and wrong. Everybody has the right to do what's right and to defend against people who are committing immoral aggression. So what good is authority? If you don't need authority to justify good stuff, which obviously you don't, what do you need it for? To justify bad stuff. The belief in authority is literally the belief that certain rituals make it morally okay for some people to do things that all of us would recognize as wrong and bad and evil and destructive and anti-human if we did it on our own without a badge or legislation or any special authority. Well, normal people have no right to do that, but I mean, he's enforcing the law. All that belief does is legitimize evil, literally, because you don't need special authority to do anything good. And if somebody says, you, Russell, have been given special authority to do this thing, it would be bad if you did it without the special authority. If you were just some guy doing, then it's wrong. Like taxing your neighbors, i.e. robbing them to fund something that you say is important. If you do that, you're a thief, you're a bad guy. But if we have legislation and rituals and all sorts of weird, convoluted excuses that give you authority, well, now you have permission to do evil. Something that we would all recognize as evil if a normal person did it. Now you have a badge and a law and a title and an office. Now it's okay. That belief is near universal as a result of massive indoctrination, and it is the foundation of pretty much every one of the problems you talk about and every one of the problems you don't talk about. I mean, yeah, people are still people. They're not going to be perfect. People are going to do dumb things. People are going to do nasty things. But this belief in authority can let somebody like Fauci or Trudeau or pick your favorite power-happy doofus, it allows them to be infinitely more dangerous because their bad, immoral ideas can be forced on everybody else by way of government in a way that most people think, well, we have to go along with it. It's law. The governor signed a mandate. They passed this law. It's illegal not to blah, blah, blah. So the mentality of the victims, of the peasantry, is ultimately really the problem. The fact that lots of people will look at crooks like that and go, we must petition them to change their commands because we can't just disobey. That would make us lawbreakers and criminals. Do we have no respect for authority? Russell, I ask you from the bottom of my heart, please consider the fact that to be a moral human being requires you to have no respect for authority. Have respect for your fellow man. That's why we don't murder. It's why we don't steal. It's not because somebody legislated it. Respect for authority is the problem. I was going to try to keep this short. That wasn't exactly short, but I will cut it off there. If you're at all interested in this, I'd love to send you a free copy of my book, The Most Dangerous Superstition. If somebody emails me or something, send an address. But even if you don't talk about this or think about this much, I hope this sort of seeps through your consciousness while you talk about all the myriad of examples of authoritarian abuse and corruption and realize this is only a problem because the people perceive that group of crooks as their rightful lord and masters, as government, as the legal authority instead of just some power-happy psychos. Because the day we all say, you're just power-happy psychos, we don't have to obey you, they don't have anybody funding them, they don't have anyone obeying them, and they don't have anybody enforcing their lunacy, and then we're done. There isn't a big monster we need to overthrow. There's a lie between 7 billion pairs of ears that needs to be overthrown. So those are my 2 cents. Thanks so much for all you do. And I hope this seeps into your consciousness while you're talking about all the other awesome things you talk about. Have a nice day.